This is a demonstration of exercise 135, applying the accounting equation and assessing financial statement linkages. This problem gives us information on AMD's assets and liabilities and Intel's assets and liabilities. And the problem wants us to use this information plus information from their assets and liabilities at the beginning and end of the year and to calculate stockholders' equity, or the missing information in the problem. So for AMD, we do not have the assets at the beginning of the year, but we have them at the end. We have their beginning of the year liabilities, but we don't have them at the end. And we don't have stockholders' equity, but we do know the accounting equation. So we can determine the missing information from what we have and what they have given us. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out what are the assets at the beginning of the year. So if we have the assets at the end of the year, which we do, 4,556, and we know that the assets increased by 1,004 million, then we know that the assets at the beginning of the year had to be equal to the end of the year minus that increase. So we're going to put that amount in now. And I have my formula set up to calculate the beginning of the year. So it took the 4,556 and subtracted the 1,004, and it filled in 3,552. Now the next information we're missing is the liabilities. So we know the beginning of the year liabilities, and it tells us in the problem that the liabilities increased by 334 million. So we're going to start off to calculate the end of the year. We're going to start off with the beginning of the year that they give us, and we're going to add to that the 334 million. And I have my spreadsheet set up to add these two amounts together and fill in that part of the table. The last thing we need to calculate is stockholders' equity at the end of the year. So we know that stockholders' equity is equal to the assets at the end of the year minus the liabilities at the end of the year, because the accounting equation is assets equals liabilities plus stockholders' equity. So if we want to solve for stockholders' equity, we take our assets at the end of the year and we'll subtract our liabilities at the end of the year that we calculated. So now we know that stockholders' equity was 1,266 million. So now we have all of the information calculated for Advanced Micro Devices, or AMD. You can do the same thing using the accounting equation and calculate these missing amounts for Intel. I did not show those, but you can go through the same process. They gave you the same type of information, and you can calculate the assets at the end of the year using the information from the chart plus the increase. You can calculate the liabilities at the beginning of the year by taking the end of the year and then this decrease. So we would add that amount. And then you can just use the accounting equation to calculate stockholders' equity. So the next part of the problem wants us to calculate what average assets are for each company. So average assets is equal to the beginning of the year assets plus the end of the year assets divided by 2. So we're going to copy that information, since we've already calculated that for AMD from our chart. And I have and then we need to put the number 2 in. So my formula up here is taking the beginning of the year asset amount from the chart, the end of the year asset amount from the chart, and dividing it by 2. So now we have our average assets. And you will need to do the same thing for Intel after you have your chart completed. And then the part C wants to know which company has the largest proportion of its assets financed by the company's owners at the end of the year. So remember, the owners are represented by stockholders' equity. So to get the proportion of the assets that are owned by the stockholders, we would divide stockholders' equity end of the year by assets end of the year. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to copy our stockholders' equity amount, and we're going to copy our end of year asset amounts, and then the formula is calculating that for us. So it's taking the stockholders' equity and dividing it by end of year assets. And you would need to do the same thing for Intel. Use the same formula after you have gotten the missing information for Intel. And that is the end of the demonstration for exercise 135.